Welcome to Hersheypark, the sweetest park in the eastern United States. Talk about a real-life Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. This wonderful park has been open for nearly 120 years and packs in a ton of historical charm. It tends to feel like it was designed in Roller Coaster Tycoon, with rides stacked on top of each other in a fairly small plot of land. Hersheypark is a very popular park that draws crowds from all over the place and can tend to have slower operations, so planning out your visit here is a must. If you followed along with my other theme park ultimate guides, then you'll be familiar with the format of these videos. I like to break them down into 3 different segments. These would be what you should do before visiting the park, what you should do once your plans are locked in, and finally, what to do once you're at the park. At the end of this video, it's my goal to have you as prepared as possible to have an unforgettable visit to this chocolate-inspired amusement park. Making these videos for you guys takes a lot of work, so I really appreciate all the support you're giving me. Every like, view, comment, and subscription really helps me out a lot, but if you feel like helping me out further, check out my Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can help me in my journey to bring even more of this high-quality content to you guys. During this video, I'm going to have this audio cue when I have a secret tip. These ones are super important and can help give you an edge above the crowd. I will also be discussing the best times to ride the major coasters like Sky Rush and what rows you should ride it in. I'll also be discussing whether or not the Fast Pass is worth it when visiting the park, so stay tuned. Let's dive in. Like most amusement parks, there are some steps you should take to prepare before visiting. This would include things like what you should wear and where you should be staying. With how crowded this park can get, following a guide like this can elevate your visit to the next level. This is where we'll be discussing park entry options like tickets, as well as whether or not it's worth it to get the dining pass. Tip number 1, pick the right hotel for you. There are a number of motels and hotels right near Hersheypark that all vary in price from extremely cheap to wildly expensive. Hershey, Pennsylvania is a decently popular tourist spot, so prices can fluctuate quite a bit depending on what time of year you're visiting. While hotel choice is going to be dictated most likely by price for you, many of them are located on Chocolate Avenue, putting you right next to the park. This is going to be the best area to stay in so you don't have to travel far from your hotel to get to the park itself. If you want an extra sweet stay, definitely check out Hotel Hershey. They are an all-inclusive resort hotel that has pools, gardens, different recreational areas, and private villas for those of you who want some extra privacy or are traveling in larger groups. Tip number 2, know what to wear. I've mentioned it in other videos and I'll mention it here. The Thuzies are right about attire. This is in regard to their choice to wear cargo shorts. These come in a wide variety of designs, but the key here is that you get ones with zipper pockets. If your pockets utilize buttons, things could easily slip out. Next, you need to have comfortable shoes. There are plenty of newer brands out there making super comfortable walking or running shoes that are designed to be worn all day long. Next, a good t-shirt. This is Pennsylvania, so unless you're visiting during the winter, just go with a t-shirt all day long. It's going to be hot and humid while you're here, and there's a guaranteed chance you'll be sweating a lot, so you want a light colored t-shirt made with good materials to keep you cool. In this case, athletic shirts can be a really good option. If you're going in the winter, temperatures can be pretty cool later in the day, so it might also be a good idea to bring a jacket with you. Once again, I really want to emphasize the importance of wearing proper shoes. While this park isn't all that large, you're going to be on your feet all day long. Tip number 3, know what to bring. As with any theme park trip that I go on, I have always found it to be a good idea to bring a small backpack. This ensures that you can bring all the necessities like pain meds, hand sanitizer, small snacks, a hydro flask, and more. This is a topic I might do later, as picking the right backpack is a quest that I've been on for quite a while. You generally don't want to bring one that's too large and pack it full with everything you could possibly need. Hersheypark generally has longer hours, so you don't want to completely weigh yourself down. One final thing that I would recommend bringing is a portable charger. You're going to be most likely spending your entire day at the park and presumably taking a lot of photos, consulting the park app for information, or generally getting distracted by whatever it is you do on your phone. The last thing you want is to have your phone dying on you while you're still at the park. The final thing you'll want to bring is what I call a cheese rag. I sweat a lot, so having a rag around to wipe the sweat away is a good idea to try not to allow yourself to be too gross and sticky. Tip number 4, plan to spend 1 to 2 full days here. Hersheypark can be 95% conquered in a single day. There's a fairly large collection of coasters here, and a decent number of them get a very long line. Despite this, I still think it is worth spending at least 2 days here so you can get the most out of the park. There is still a lot you can enjoy here, from riding Skyrush or Wildcats Revenge, to seeing shows, visiting the water park, and more. You don't want to make your visit here a half-baked one. Another reason why I recommend spending a couple days here is the operations. Hersheypark's operations are not their strongest suit, and this is a very popular park. Tip number 5, pick the best time to visit. Due to the climate, Hersheypark operates seasonally like most US amusement parks. It is closed for most of the winter, but opens during the weekend in April for limited hours. In May, it starts to open from Friday to Sunday, and on the last week of May, and through June, July, and August, it is open 7 days a week. In September, it returns back to weekend-only operation. If you want to maximize your visit completely, you might consider going the last week of May. You might also consider a weekend in early May or April, but just be wary, the roller coasters haven't had a chance to warm up by this time, so they won't be running on all cylinders. Like most regional parks, going super early or late in the season is a good idea, as it'll guarantee that you won't see large crowds. If you do find yourself going during the busiest time of the operating season, don't worry too much, as there is a ton of stuff to do here that can help spread out the crowds just enough to make it all doable in a day or two. Tip number 6, use these resources to help with planning. When picking out the best day to go, there are several websites like isitpacked.com and qtimes.com, which are great resources for helping to anticipate what crowd levels could be. Something I should note here, these websites are not 100% accurate and only give an estimation of what they think crowds will be like on a day-to-day basis. They get most of their data from historical figures, so keep this in mind when visiting them. Well, time for our first secret tip. Secret tip number 1. Use Hersheypark Fast Track prices to anticipate crowd levels. If you want an extra secret resource to check potential crowd levels, then look at the online prices of Fast Passes. These can change based on the anticipated crowd levels that leadership at Hersheypark have determined will be likely. If the passes are more expensive, then expect it to have larger crowds on those days. Tip number 7, try visiting during the special events. If you're a local resident to the Hershey, Pennsylvania area, then I definitely recommend stopping by Hersheypark for its Halloween and Christmas events. This park isn't known for putting on all that many special events, but for these 2 holidays, they go all out. For those of you who are not residents to the area, these can be easily skipped out on for your local amusement park's holiday-themed events instead. Tip number 8, pre-purchase park entry or season passes online. Speaking of the website, this is where you want to go to purchase your entry tickets or season passes. When buying individual tickets, it is significantly cheaper and quicker to buy them online. It prevents you from having to wait in line at the ticket counter, which is not a quick process at all. Tip number 9, leave the cash at home. Hersheypark is 100% cashless. If you make a mistake and forget the card at home but bring some cash with you, they do accept Apple, Samsung, and Google Pay, and have cash-to-card kiosks dotted all around the park. Tip number 10, find out if the dining pass is a good option. Hersheypark offers a couple of different options for their dining passes. You have the single meal deal option and the all-day dining option. These are seemingly okay in value, but may only save you a few extra dollars on food. I can't say that I fully recommend this, as the arbitrary rules it has really only might save you a little bit of money on the food you'll be purchasing throughout your day here. Tip number 11, download the Hersheypark app. I will probably state this tip in just about every video. If the park has an app, you want to download it. These are great for getting not only live wait times and ride closures, but also for finding information on shows and having a digital park map. It's available on both Android and iOS, meaning unless you have a flip phone, you can download the app. These apps have a pretty decent filtering option so you can find exactly what you need, be it restrooms, rides, restaurants, and more. Tip number 12, find out if the fast passes are worth it. If you watch my video about fast passes, you may remember me freaking out about the prices of fast passes at other parks. Let's face it, Hersheypark Fastlane prices can be pretty steep. I would really only recommend paying for them if you either have a limited time at the park or just have a ton of cash to burn. Yes, the lines can get very long here, but if you focus more on planning your trip out better, you're more likely to spend less time waiting in line without having to pay the extra cost. Some rides, like Fahrenheit, offer a single ride skip the line pass that may be worth it, since coasters like this tend to frequently have long lines. If you are curious, you can punch a hole in your pockets with the fast track passes for around $50 to $170 for a single ride, or anywhere from $75 to $225 for an all-day long pass. Talk about a steal! Secret tip number 2. Take advantage of your season pass benefits. As a season pass holder, you have exclusive parking right up close to the park. It's located here, closest to the Hersheypark Supply Co. gift shop. There really is no better spot to park, and if you get here early enough, you won't have to look very hard to find parking either. Now that you've picked out when you're going and all that, we should dial in more and figure out what to do while you're at the park proper. The most important part of this section is what you do at the start of your day. You really need to plan on making the right moves so that you beat the crowds early. Tip number 13, consider visiting the zoo. Accessible with a separate admission or by monorail from inside Hersheypark, there is a zoo adjacent to the main amusement park. This 11-acre zoo is open year-round and features a variety of animals native to North America. If you have kids with you, I'd highly recommend visiting this zoo with them. Tip number 14, plan on arriving at least 30 minutes early to the parking gate. In my opinion, it is a good idea to get here at least 30 minutes early so you can get a better parking spot. Some people don't really care about this, but here's why I think it's important. You're going to be doing a lot of walking and standing throughout the entire day, and after all of that, would you really want to have to walk even farther just to get to your car? I sure wouldn't. Not only does getting to the parking gate early give you a chance at finding a better parking spot, it gets you through park entry quicker too. Tip number 15, bring a spray bottle. I cannot emphasize enough just how humid it will be while you're here. Hersheypark has a really weird mix of a lot of really well shaded areas and a lot of not so good shaded areas. I apologize if I sound a bit like a broken record, but you really should find every way to cool off during those hotter days. If you have a spray bottle with a fan on it, bring it. Half of the misters around the park are likely to be broken, so it's worth bringing one of these or purchasing one on site. Tip number 16, save at least $150 to bring with you into the park. If I forgot to mention it previously, a single meal for one person can cost roughly $30. Having at least $150 to your name is a good idea for a single day here, so that you can pay for meals, lockers, and any additional things like snacks, on-ride photos, and souvenirs. You could most likely get by spending a lot less than this, but generally I feel like this is a fairly safe amount of money to have ready. Tip number 17, know where the best places to eat are. There are a decent number of food options dotted all around the park. Some of them feature recognizable names from chains like Chick-fil-A, Subway, and Chickies and Pete's. Here's our top 3 restaurants to check out at the park. Number 3, Spring Creek Smokehouse. Number 2, Overlook Food Court. And finally, number 1, The Chocolatier Restaurant. Tip number 18, know which flat rides are the best. Here are the top 5 flat rides at Hersheypark. Number 5, the Howler. Number 4, the Drop Towers. Number 3, Scrambler. Number 2, the Claw. And finally, number 1, the Tilt-A-Whirl. As soon as it opens, Twizzlers Twisted Gravity and S&S Scream and Swing will obviously take the number 1 spot by a landslide. Tip number 19, know which coasters are the best. Here are the top 5 roller coasters at Hersheypark. Number 5, Storm Runner. Number 4, Candemonium. Number 3, Fahrenheit. Number 2, Skyrush. And finally, number 1, Wildcat's Revenge. For this last one, I know there are a ton of Skyrush apologists out there, so I need to ask a favor of you. Watch this video to see exactly why you are wrong. Tip number 20, make a checklist of all the things you plan on bringing with you to the park. I mentioned earlier how you should bring a small backpack filled with all the essentials you might need. I know this doesn't apply to everyone, but I can tend to be very forgetful, so having a written checklist I can consult before leaving my hotel has been a lifesaver. Make sure to write down all the things you plan on bringing with you to the park, and double check it before you leave. When I say everything, I mean everything, including the clothes on your back. You really wouldn't want to forget those. Tip number 21. Either list or visually plot out your route using the park map available online or through the app. Later in the video, I'm going to give you a rundown of what I believe is the ideal itinerary for how to conquer this park. Even then, I wouldn't expect you or myself to remember every detail about this plan, so make sure to visually write down what your plans are exactly so you can consult back to these. In my opinion, when you're in the meat grinder, it's always a good idea to keep a list of goals and a plan handy so that you can stay on track. You can easily draw on the map itself by taking a screenshot of the park map with your phone and using the included markup tools available inside the default photo gallery apps. This will allow you to visually chart out your path, or you can always use a list instead. Tip number 22, eat a small but filling breakfast snack before visiting the park. Since you're planning on being jostled about all day long, I highly recommend eating at least a small snack for breakfast before going to the park. You want to start the day off right. Even if you plan on having a proper breakfast, I would still recommend to keep it fairly light so as to ensure you don't feel sluggish and bogged down for most of your day at the park. Tip number 23, check the weather before you visit. On a final note about the heat, it is a really good idea to check what the weather will be like when you visit. If temperatures are supposed to be 90 degrees or hotter, with a humidity of 90% or more, I would highly recommend either planning on visiting on a different day or consider taking a break midday to cool off. We've got most of the planning out of the way. Now is the time to put that planning to the test. Keep watching as we're about to dive into the perfect itinerary for how to absolutely master this park. If you're like me and like content creation, stay tuned as I have some great recommendations for the best photo opportunities later in this section. Tip number 24, mark your spot. This is just a good tip in general. If you're parking in the main lot in front of the park, either screenshot your location on your phone's map where you park, or take a picture of one of the nearby signs to denote where you are. There's nothing like spending an entire day at an amusement park, walking around and spending even more time trying to figure out where the heck your car is. Tip number 25, follow this itinerary. Now for the important part, let's conquer this park. One of the biggest challenges of Hersheypark is that no matter what, some of the best rides in the park will have a longer line no matter what time you visit it. The park itself gets busiest from front to back, with rides at the front of the park getting their busiest at 1 p.m., whereas rides at the back of the park are busiest at around 4 p.m. This is why it is a good idea to start in the back and move your way towards the front of the park. The best place to start would be either Wildcat's Revenge or Laugh Track. Once you get these out of the way, skip Wild Mouse and Lightning Racer. Both of these rides don't get very long lines. From here, you have to get on Fahrenheit as quickly as possible. This ride will be busy throughout most of the day. At this point, you should consider heading towards Storm Runner and Jolly Rancher Remix. If Storm Runner is broken down, get Jolly Rancher first. After hitting these two rides up, you should head towards Great Bear, then Comet, and Skyrush. Depending on what time you're able to finish riding these coasters at, you may want to swing back and pick up any of the ones that you missed. This leaves Candemonium for last, and by this time, if it's later in the day, you should be able to ride without too much of a line. Be sure to follow my tip about eating lunch earlier or later than everyone else so you can continue to ride the coasters when everyone else is eating lunch. Tip number 26, ride the monorail. If you're looking for a nice way to take a seat and get some nice views, consider riding the monorail. This ride also provides for an easy way to get between the dry park and the zoo. Because of its placement within the park, it should also provide for some great photo opportunities as well. Tip number 27, grab a Hershey's bar. If you think that you can go to Hersheypark, let alone Hershey, Pennsylvania, without getting a Hershey bar from here, you might have a lot to reconsider in life. Seriously, this is an obvious tip, but do yourself a favor and grab at least one piece of chocolate while you're here. Tip number 28, stay hydrated. As you can tell, there is a ton of walking you'll be doing while you're at the park. Some parts of Hersheypark have more shade than others, so you may find yourself in a hotter part of the park for most of the day. For men, that means drinking roughly 104 ounces of water in a day, and for women, that means 72 ounces. The most common size of hydro flask I've seen carries roughly 32 ounces of water, so you want to drink this and refill it roughly 3 times over. It seems like a lot, but this is a really good amount to keep yourself hydrated throughout the day. Tip number 29, know which seats are the best for each ride. Hersheypark has a ton of rides, so let's get right into the best seats on each. First, we have Candemonium. This ride was best in the front row. The back row seemed to have a bit of a rattle, and the front did a good job at providing the forces and the sense of speed. For Skyrush, the back row is the best if you love airtime. On the way down the first drop, you'll get an extra kick out of your seat. For Great Bear, any row is good. Super Duper Looper is best in the front row for the views. Comet is best in the front row as well. The back row can tend to feel like it's fishtailing at certain points. Storm Runner is best in the front as well. Lightning Racer is just a fun ride in any row. I highly recommend riding both sides separately at least once. Fahrenheit was great in any row, and finally, Wildcat's Revenge. There is no better choice than the back row on this ride. During this coaster's several lateral moments, you get relentlessly thrown to the side in the back row harder than any other. Tip number 30, know the best ways to cool off. Hersheypark is home to 2 separate water rides. These would be Tidal Force and Coal Cracker. Tidal Force is a splash boat that will surely soak you. Coal Cracker is more of a standard log flume that will definitely be on the more relaxing side. Tip number 31, is the water park worth it? If you're weird like me, then you may not be the biggest fan of water parks. For the rest of you out there, from what I can tell, the boardwalk at Hersheypark is a decent water park with a fairly small amount of attractions on offer. This could be a great way to cool down and take things a little easier for a while. Be wary, as this water park doesn't have a ton of shade. You'll definitely want to make sure you have an extra layer of sunscreen on. Tip number 32, know where to refill your hydro flasks. Keeping yourself hydrated while visiting an amusement park is super important to ensure you are in good health. Many of the kiosks around the park offer free refills of water for your hydro flasks, and there are also refill stations at many of the restrooms dotted around the park. Tip number 33, eat your meals later or earlier than the rushes. From about noon to 1:30 p.m., most of the restaurants in the park experience a rush where everyone is trying to eat lunch. I would highly recommend for you to either get your food no later than 11:30 a.m. or after 1:30 p.m. so you don't have to wait in a long line. Tip number 34, if you have kids with you, check out Founder's Way. Founder's Way is in the middle of the park and is nearly impossible to miss. Nearly all of the smaller rides meant for kids are located all around this part of the park. You are most likely to see mascots walking around for meet and greets around here too. Tip number 35, visit Hershey's Chocolate World. This is another great tip for those of you with kids. Just outside of the park, before the main entrance, you will see a large building called Hershey's Chocolate World. Inside this building, you will have all of your chocolate dreams come true. Every kind of Hershey's product you can think of, and many you may have never heard of, reside within for you to purchase. You like king size? Try candy bars bigger than your face. They exist, and Hershey's Chocolate World sells them. There is also an ice cream parlor, a factory tour, and many other fun activities to do inside. Tip number 36. Check out the best gift shops in the park. There are many different gift shops to choose from, but our top two would be Coaster Central and Hersheypark Supply Co. Hersheypark Supply Co. is the gift shop you go through at the exit of the park and is packed with the largest variety of souvenirs and apparel. Tip number 37. Know the best places for dessert. Hersheypark, unsurprisingly, has a lot of different dessert options. Here are our top 3 favorites. Number 3, Simply Chocolate. Number 2, Milton's Ice Cream Parlor. And finally, number 1, the Sweetery Confectionery Kitchen. Tip number 38. Know which are the best night rides. Hersheypark is full of a lot of rides that trend towards the shorter side, but there are a few good options for its night rides. Number 5, Great Bear. Number 4, Storm Runner. Number 3, Candemonium. Number 2, Sky Rush. And finally, number 1, Wildcat's Revenge. Tip number 39. Check out Chocolate Avenue. In the heart of Hershey, Pennsylvania, you will find a street called Chocolate Avenue. On this street, you'll find an abundance of tourist-related activities and shops to check out. I highly recommend checking out the museum that tells the story of Milton Hershey. There are also other fun things to see, such as the street lamps that are shaped like Hershey's Kisses. Tip number 40. Check out these spots for taking great photos. And finally, for our final tip for those content creators of you out there, let's check out the best photo spots at the park. Because of how layered the ride collection is at Hersheypark, there are a lot of different spots to get great photos and videos from. Arguably, one of the first and better spots would have to be on Park Boulevard, behind Hersheypark. From here, you can get some up-close shots of Comet, Sky Rush, Great Bear, Super Duper Looper, and more. Up next is this spot in the middle of the ride area of Storm Runner. There is a ton of path to walk around here and get various angles of this awesome coaster. You can also get some good photos of Trailblazer as well. Up next is the Ferris wheel. Just about any park that has a larger scale Ferris wheel makes for a great spot to get photos from an elevated position. You can see a large amount of the park from here. Finally, we have the queue for Wildcat's Revenge. There's a fairly limited amount of spots you can get photos from that will be super unique, but there is still a very open view of the ride itself. So there you have it. Hopefully after watching this video, you should feel prepared to have the best day at Hersheypark. This park feels pretty unique as it isn't owned by one of the major amusement park chains, but it also isn't family owned either. It has the financial backing of a larger park while still having the individuality of a much smaller regional park. There's tons to do here and a great selection of legendary coasters to ride, so I'm sure that after watching this guide, you'll be set to have the sweetest day. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like and comment below and hit that bell icon. Special thanks to our Patreon supporter, Future Collective. $1 a month helps me bring even more content to you guys, and I even have some exclusive content coming, so check it out. Check the description below to find links to the rest of our pages. Thanks for watching the video, and ride on, Coaster Maniacs!